one thing that's really been bothering kind of both of us in general is food influencers. So I don't think I've talked about it, and right before I pass the ball over to Ali about this, because he's a chef, a consultant for restaurants. He's worked with a lot of big companies, so he has a lot of the feelings of the impact that happens. But it's kind of funny because as I travel, Ali gives me lots of great advice of where to go and what to check out. And one of the first things I do is check out the foodie influencers to see what they're promoting, like what places look good. And it's funny because we were talking about how disappointing it is when you drive across town to go try something, like being in Chicago and you go where everyone talks about, but then you literally just go down the street from where I'm living and it's like some of the best food I've ever had. So he's given a lot of great advice. And I'm really interested to hear, Ali, what you have to say about, what is the impact that these influencers have on restaurants, and how is that different than what we've seen with food critics?
Well, I think it's having it could have positive impact, but in addition, it's going to have negative impact because you could really hurt somebody's business. And what really infuriates me, and this is a topic that really makes me angry, really upset over the last year or two, is that we have food critics out there that know nothing about food, that know nothing about flavor or taste buds. Or even how what's inside of a hot dog, or what's in a true burrito, or what's in an Italian sub sandwich. Mm-hmm. And they're out there reporting, and you got influencers that are from the ages of 18 to 50, 60 years old, and they're reporting on these restaurants. Now, I purposely, whether I'm going to like them or not, I'm going to follow their advice if there's anything local where I'm at. Some of it I will drive up to 15, 20, 30 minutes just to go try it. So if they're promoting a hot dog, a sandwich, a burger, a restaurant, and I'll tell you right now, 90% of the time, I'm really disappointed. And I'm not trying to be negative. Don't take me wrong on any of this. How they make their money, how they make their living. I promote all those that want to get ahead out there and do something positive. But this isn't positive, and I want these restaurants to succeed, but they also have to fix their own problems, and not by being guided from some young influencer telling people to drive across town to go eat something that's not good. I went to go get an Italian sub, and they had mayonnaise on it, and tomatoes, and it's like, that's not an Italian sub to me. And I'm not trying to be picky here at all, but it was literally disgusting. It was actually being a big glob of tomato. The bread was stale, and they're promoting as this being the best sub place. And they always say this is the best I've ever had. And they're over there with the tacos and the burritos and adding all this stuff. And somebody I was watching today on Instagram was promoting Wiener Schnitzel. Mm-hmm. And just saying this is the worst hot dog that she ever tasted, and that the fries were incredible. All they had to do was fry them longer, and they'd be McDonald's French fries. And I'm thinking to myself, what gives you the right to criticize these restaurants? The fast food restaurants are the fast food restaurants. Why are you even reviewing them in the first place?
Yeah.
They shouldn't be reviewed. I mean, they're nothing like the 70s and 80s when they first came out. But on top of that, although you are promoting a restaurant, everyone goes out there and they go and eat at this restaurant. They're going to eat there one time, and they're going to get abundance of people eating there, and then they're never going to come back. And then they're going to write comments on the next time they see your post and write down how horrible it was. So people are just going to stay back. So it's going to have a negative effect, and it's going to go downhill from there. Instead of letting people find out themselves. I do know an influencer out here in Chicago. He's very popular, probably millions of views. And basically, he only goes to restaurants that serve Toronto bread. Mm-hmm. So he's influencing it for the wrong reason. And it's great that he's giving these fast food restaurants, these delis, these pubs, a chance to get some more business out there because they're using their bread brand. But again, they're not that great, and they're saying, "Wow, this is an incredible chicken sandwich," and they're really boasting it up. But I'm going out there and I'm spending my money to go eat out here and try this food, and all I know is that I'm being disappointed and wasting $20, $30, or $50.
Yeah. I mean, it actually kind of reminds me, because when you mentioned German, it made me think of the German place I went to in Chicago. I'll have to send you the name later because I'd have to look it up. But it's just really funny because I just remember trying it and just knowing, like, this is real German food, and I do not like German food now. Nothing against German food. It was just so heavy and thick, but, like, it was cool because it was, like, an authentic experience, which I did expect in Chicago. You know what I mean? And all we found it was just based on the reviews. We didn't find it from the influencers. And what was funny too is there were places, like I said, that were right next to me that do have good reputations, but I didn't know that they were how big they were because the influencers are promoting places that in some cases might be a chain that I've never heard of, or different things like that, or it's just something that's more of a novelty. So I do feel like influencers can be useful in this. And I say this too because I have a friend that is an influencer, and I love how he does it. Like, he's a very fast casual food kind of guy. He focuses on cafes. It's not that he won't go to like a nice restaurant and try it, especially if they invite him. I've been with him actually. There's a place in Naples called Jimmy P's. Everything at Jimmy P's is awesome. Like, they butcher their own meat, they have their own cows. I went with him to the restaurant thing, but like, he'll do it, but it definitely wasn't his vibe. And he makes a very conscious effort and rule though that he learned from a food critic actually, which is like, if I have a bad experience, I'm not going to share it. What's really interesting is now he's kind of has to deal with the way that Instagram and some of these guys do engagement. So it's actually not even just his behavior. He's like, I actually have to post things now about my actual experience, because if I don't, I get overlooked by the algorithm because other people are talking about these things. So it's also just really weird to see the pressures and where you're getting that information. And what changed my mind about all this too was there's a show called Next Gen Chef. I think it's on Netflix, and it's at we were talking about before. It's from the Culinary Institute of America. Kind of cool. I think the whole thing's like a promo for culinary, for CIA. But what really caught my attention was like, oh, when you, Ali, talk about food critics, you're talking about people with real culinary arts experience, whether that's working as a chef or about being around food and being able to appreciate the discipline, the technique, in the same way a painter can. Where like when I'm looking at an influencer, it's somebody just like me. The only difference is they have a bunch of people following them. And it's kind of a bummer because I have gone to places like Santa Fe, which has an amazing food scene. And I'm going to places that people are recommending and like, it's okay. But then I walk to the brunch place down the street that no one's talking about, and it's amazing. And it has real authentic food there. So I do feel like it is missing the point, because like talking about incentives, it might not necessarily be a financial incentive for an influencer, but for an influencer to maintain their influence, they might have to cater and behave in a way that doesn't work for the business, but works for the algorithm so they can stay in front of their audience. And like, for me, that's a negative experience because I just want to eat good food.
Right. And a true influencer would actually know about food. They would understand taste buds,
Yeah.
sour, salty, bitter, and they've been trained in the culinary arts field. They're actually a gastronome, and those were food critics in the past. Now, food critics, some of them were very stern and strict.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just like, okay, I don't want you to review my place at all. Stay out of my place.
Ratatouille.
So, but at least they had experience in food and dining, and whether it was fast casual, fine dining, even pizza that they criticized or rated high, they knew what a good pizza was, what a good pie was. They knew the texture of it and how crispy it was. And these people rating some of these pizza places, I go and try the pizza and I'm like, oh my God, it's soggy. The sauce is too sweet. Or there's no flavor to it. And the cheese is not real cheese. And I'm thinking to myself, why are these influencers rating these places? Because again, as I said, 80-90% of them are really bad restaurants. They're bad fast casual dining places to sit down, and there's absolutely no service. They literally just throw the menu at you. They bring you a dirty dish, and I'm thinking, and I went to a brunch place the other day, and she brought me a dirty dish because I asked her for a side dish.
Yeah.
And she said, "What do you want?" She didn't come back and check up on me. And it's posted all over the internet that this is the great place to go for brunch and the variety. And I'm just thinking, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And that's what's disappointing about what this generation is doing to the food. I want to go eat. I like to dine. I want to dine at good restaurants, great restaurants, but I also want to support the small places. So I do know if I'm going to go get a hot dog and a hamburger, I know what to expect. But don't promote them as being the greatest thing in the world, especially when you're 18 and 25 years old.
Yeah. It's actually kind of funny too, as you're talking about the restaurant experience beyond the food, because what my influencer buddy kind of pointed out, and like I said, he tries to be fair and tries to judge the food. So I like following him, not just because he's my friend. I like the places that he recommends. But him and I were actually discussing it one day, because one thing he really feels like is happening too is that you see influencers focusing on things, and maybe this does matter to people. For me, it's a little bit harder because I don't care. Like, I'm there for the food, but he's like, I feel like a lot of influencers are digging more into the ambiance too. So like, you could go to an amazing ramen or pho or Mexican place where it doesn't have great decor, and it might get a lot of we'll call it bad press from like an influencer, because like, well, to them, a big part of it's the decor. So I think that's like another thing that like, you don't think it influences you, but when you're getting bombarded on like Instagram, Facebook, I guess those are really the main places to get. I mean, even YouTube, you know, like for me, I love watching competitive food eaters, but they'll never say a bad thing about a restaurant. So I don't know if I can trust them on that. But like, I think being bombarded with stuff where people are talking about ambiance and stuff beyond food, I think it's also quite a bit frustrating, not just for me as someone who's looking for that type of good advice, but that's got to be really frustrating for the restaurant too, because if you've been known for 20 years for great food and now you're being judged on your old decor, that's got to be really frustrating. It just doesn't sound like something a food critic cares about.
True. And a Michelin star critic would. You know,
Okay.
they look at everything. Everyone has to be the same, from the dishwasher. Their clothes have to be pressed.
Mhm.
No jewelry hanging out, no tattoos showing. So they're looking at the overall ambiance.
Okay.
But
That's
it's
fair
coming
then.
from an old school perspective from France, though.
Yeah.
But I also have seen influencers that think that, well, I have 200,000, I have 2 million people following me. So they go in there and they basically said, well, I'm an influencer, I don't have to pay.
Yeah.
And have you seen those?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, that's why I think you're starting to see a movement of people like me where I follow I can't remember his name, but it's the Turkish guy in New York who's a cab driver. So if you haven't seen him yet, I think I've sent some to you, Ali, so I'll send you some more. But like he's great because he'll flat out tell you he's like, no one asked me to come here. I come here on my breaks. I don't get paid to be here. But it's because like he shares horror stories. And it's not just people outing other people. Like you hear horror stories from restaurant people all the time, not even owners, like employees, where it's like I had to fight with someone to pay because they're like, I did you a favor by eating here. Like it's just kind of mind blowing. And we'll get into it a little bit later and like what it actually looks like on the marketing side where I work when you are dealing with the influencers. But I know you want to kind of have some input on like the people that don't want to pay.
Well, yeah, yeah, and then you see I mean, the comments that just go viral on the person saying, you know what, we're going to stop following you, and she's like, listen, I'm helping this business,
Yeah.
you know, but then because she had to pay and they forced her, and there's a big argument going on between this, then she gives them a bad review. So now the
Yeah.
review is biased, and it's just wrong. Be mature about it if you're going to do this.
Yeah.
You know, just
Well,
have a backbone. Don't go out to hurt somebody and pay. Pay, because if you really cared about this restaurant, you would want to help them. You should be looking for free stuff.
yeah, I mean, because there are times it is mutually beneficial. Because I mean, I can tell you from the marketing side, it can be frustrating working with restaurants because a lot of them don't want to pay, right? So they'll try to pay you in food. And I say that because my foodie friend is also a marketer, and he's had to deal with that too, where it's like, well, we want to promote to your audience because I think the hard objective look that we have to remember with this stuff. So this is me speaking more as a marketer now, is that there's two sides to this, right? It's a business relationship at the end of the day. And so if you want to give someone a bunch of food for access to their audience, I think that's fair. And if that foodie says, hey, like I'll come to your place and you guys have an arrangement, that's fair. But I think what you're hitting on a lot more of is like this entitlement where someone's like, I'm a big foodie, I'm a big influencer. And the reason why that's scary, once again, even on the marketing side, is because we look at people. I've looked around at certain areas where I have friends that are influencers because most of them, my friends that are influencers, are also marketers. And we're trying to figure out like, how does that person have 10 times as much followers as my buddy does? And what else are they doing? So like the other thing to remember about social media is there's a large level of manipulation going on in the background. You have pod strategies where all the foodies are going in and liking each other's stuff and raising engagement. They're trying to manipulate the algorithm just like normal. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. You're trying to play to get the right level of promotion, right? The same thing a business or a restaurant should be doing as well, right? Like we got to play to the algorithm to get stuff visible. But I do think the economics is becoming more difficult because you have these foodies that, to your point, like you have to be able to associate a dollar value to that sign. So if you pay a foodie $400 for a post and you don't see an uptick in business, but then 3 weeks later you do, how do you associate that? You know, and like that should be the conversations around foodies, but instead we're having stupid conversations about people that are like, I'm going to come in here and promote my audience. Like, okay, you don't get to weaponize your audience. In fact, most people even violate their audience's trust. And I say that because the last thing before I stop rambling here about this is that, man, I've seen foodies that are reviewing Chick-fil-A and McDonald's and all this other stuff. And I already know that, right? Like going back to Waffle House, I know a good Waffle House from a bad Waffle House. And it also breaks just the trust in reviews. Like I treat restaurant reviews the same way I treat Amazon reviews because I know they're deeply manipulated, right? So I'm going to look at the 1-star reviews and I'm going to look at the actual things people are saying. Like what happened when things went wrong? Did they fix it? Did they respond? Same thing on the top level. you know, because we could talk about the individual situations. Like I've had a bad experience with Cheddar's, right? Where like they were amazing on the marketing side and the business side. They got us back in there 3 times. The reality is the 2 restaurants that we went to were just bad and they couldn't fix it. You know, like that's what people want to see. That's what they want to understand. And when you break that trust in reviews, they have no value.
Well, there's so many different types of influencers out there, and you know, you don't know if they have bots or if they
Yeah.
paid for their followers. You know, a lot of them have,
Yeah.
because it's not that easy just to get known out there. I do know that there's influencers out there that are showing up food. So there's this one lady, I'm not going to even mention her name, but she has a couple million followers, maybe 4
Yeah.
or 6. But she's very voluptuous, shall we say, and wears tiny, skimpy clothes. But she's always going to a pizza place, and she's vegetarian, vegan, so she's showing all this food. But I guarantee you, I read the comments, and not one person out of those millions, and she gets, you know, 20, 40, 60,000 comments and likes every time. And you know she's getting paid for this. But I
Yeah.
never see one comment on food. Everyone's
Yeah.
showing love signs and Google eyes and kisses faces and man, you're hot. And they're not talking that the food's hot. So,
Yeah.
you know, you have to look at the type of influencers out there and identify. And you know, you're talking about these restaurants, and I go into a restaurant. There's one in Chicago downtown. It was an Italian restaurant. I believe it's called Strata, and the food is incredible.
Mhm.
Very, very good. Every time I go there, the bartender's rude. She throws a cocktail napkin there and just, okay, can I get you something else? What do you need? And just never nice.
Yeah.
Never. And I complained a couple of times, and they would follow up, but they never really followed up.
Yeah.
And finally, one time, because I would go, there was a place next door to it. So I would just go in there because the food was good, and I just wanted a quick glass of wine and I could just leave. So I went there again one time, and I think they finally straightened her out, because then she was finally polite. But out of the 5 times that I went in there, but most, I would have never went back in there. But again, I didn't want to have to travel and repark my car and pay for parking downtown Chicago, knowing you can't find parking spaces. So I just go in there and say, okay, I'm going to get an appetizer, a quick glass of wine, and go back home. But I mean, how many people get turned away by that? And influencers don't report that.
Yeah.
They talk about the food, and a lot of times the food is good, but the service is bad. Or how many times have you walked into a place and the restaurant's dirty?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a balance to it all, and understanding. And again, flavors on salt, and there's one place, I'm not going to name the name of the restaurant, I don't want to, but they're a prime steakhouse. Every time I go in there, whether I have fish or steak, I feel like they season the food after they cooked it.
Mm.
And that's how strong it is. And it's a prime place that everyone loves. But
Yeah.
I have not had a good meal there.
Yeah. I think that's why, like, as a restaurant owner, if they're listening to us, what I would say to them, if I could talk to them directly, is like, I don't think you really need to be phased by influencers. And also be careful to think that hiring an influencer is just going to fix those experiences, because people are going to notice on their own. And I think having that larger volume of clients, I guess, or comments, because I do think that people are taking more time to do exactly what you're saying. They're going in, they're looking at the comments. They're finding their favorite influencers. I don't think they're just believing in everything they're saying. And obviously, you're going to have people that might have a bad experience where there's a great place. But I think that's why restaurants, if they really want to handle it properly, need to behave in a way that's like, that's great that you're here and maybe you could do something nice for them, but like, you don't need to treat it everything like a business transaction. And as an influencer, obviously they already know better, that they shouldn't just go in and demand free food. But I think that's why we just have to be more aware that, like, if you're neither an influencer or a restaurant, the thing you should be taking away from this conversation is that, like, you can pay attention to it, like, see what's going on, but like, take all of it with a grain of salt. You know, don't just go someplace because an influencer recommends it, you know, unless you know that you follow them and that you really do like the recommendations.
Oh, there's
You
some
know?
really good influenceable influencers out there.
Yeah.
Basically, the burger joint, All Cheval, is always rated in the top 5, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
They're making their way around these influencers, and they're talking about the top 5 burger places, which usually are pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I noticed that the really great restaurants, although their influencers are reporting on them, they don't need the influencers. You know, Luca's in Oak Brook here over here in Chicago is an incredible restaurant. Service from the minute you walk in to the table side to the food. And it's not just the server that making sure she serves you. It's the manager. It's somebody else. When the food is in the window, they'll bring it out for you. Somebody else is collecting the dishes, so it's not sitting there. It's a team effort.
Yeah.
And you don't need to influence those restaurants, because people in these type of restaurants are so expensive. I mean, you can pay at Al Cheval anywhere from $25 to $50 a burger. And it's very expensive, but it's packed. Everyone's waiting an hour, 2 hours to get in that burger place every single day. Luca's the same thing. It's packed. And you're going to probably pay an average of about maybe $100, $150 per person or more to eat in that restaurant. And it's packed. People don't mind paying for good food and good service. And they don't need it marketed.
Yeah. I think that's also why something else to remember. I feel like, and I'm bringing this up because of Chicago. Like, I can't remember the name, but I'm still gonna mention it. There's a really popular burger joint, or they have a few locations now. But it's funny because I know people that went to this place 20 years ago, and it's known for its burgers because it has like great toppings and stuff on it. And I loved the Ambiance, and they had like this great mac and cheese thing. And I just remember I get this brie and prosciutto types burger thing, because they have these burger battles, right? So I was like, okay, I'll get one of the burger battles. It seems fun. And I bit into the burger, and I could just taste the patty was just not a fresh patty. But that's what they were known for, by the way. So like, I'm paying $25 for a burger because I'm being told they're known for their great quality burger. And what's funny is I mentioned it to a couple of friends, and they were like, no, it wasn't that place. Like, I've eaten there. Like, the food is good. And then I talked to one friend that had eaten there recently, and he goes, oh yeah, like 4 years ago they were great. And he's like, now, like, yeah, you can tell they replaced it with cheaper ingredients. So I think that's what makes all this kind of complicated too, you know, because the guys that have really built up their reputation get to keep riding that out for a long time, where other restaurants that are really trying to cut their teeth or establish themselves, you know, it's hard to like focus on that loyal following, because like you said, it just takes one influencer to really cut you at the knees at the wrong time, you know?
Well, a lot of times, without them doing their research, the business could have been sold. So somebody else bought it. Chipotle was sold. The owner walked out, and you've seen the quality change. Then you see all these problems with, food poisoning. Every place, once they know they hit their peak, they sell. So then they say, okay, I spent an exceptional amount of money to buy this place out, or my lease went up, so I got to shrink the patties. I got to lower the quality. It's no longer an Angus certified beef patty.
Yeah.
We're just going to go, and normally it's mixed with brisket and chuck or sirloin. Now we're just going to go straight out sirloin.
Yeah. So I guess the bigger lesson there too is like, that's where I always feel like I'm going to try to find local places, give them a shot, and new places. Like, that's what I loved about Santa Fe. Like, I went to the places that were known for being authentic New Mexican. And then I went to places that, they were just new and they just seemed fun. You know, I didn't really look at the reviews because, we talked about that. Like, when I was in Chicago, there were places where we went across town to try it and it was just okay. And then, like I said, I just learned stuff being a little bit closer was better. So that's why I had 3 really great places like surrounding me that I could literally walk to get coffee and food. But I think part of what happened was, like, I was so busy listening to the foodies when I first got there. I did try a couple of things. I was disappointed. We went to the churro bar, thinking it was an actual bar, by the way. Yeah, we could have researched it, I guess, but like, it wasn't even that. It's just, even with the name churro bar, and it looks so high end, and we walk in and it's like a little kid's ice cream place. You know what I mean? It didn't give that vibe until we walked in. And, you go to some of these other places downtown because it's downtown and it's fancy, and it was fine, but like, I think when we gave the local stuff a shot, and this is just, I guess, my style is like, that's where I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm not going to let the foodies influence me this time, and that's where I felt better, because the foodie conversations for Santa Fe, that if you ever get to join the group, they're cool. They're nice. A lot of those people are interesting, but they only mentioned certain restaurants. Like, there were 20 food trucks there that I didn't try. I didn't try a single one. I'm ashamed. I should have went and tried at least the shawarma truck.
Yes. And listen, I have a different perspective from the average person. The average person is looking for a new place to eat, something jazzy. It's the trend now, because years ago, you didn't need a cocktail menu. You didn't need a mocktail menu. Nowadays, if you don't have one, you're losing business. People want to read off the menu what's coming up next. So these are the trends right now. I think slowly the trends are going to start changing again because people want trust and value.
Yeah.
And they feel like they're not getting that now. They feel like they're just overpaying for things that they're not receiving as far as quality and trust. But my perspective is when I go to these places, whether they're good or bad, is that I'm trying them out as not content for myself, but it's for research and development, for books, and for understanding where the food industry is going. Is
Yeah.
it lowering its standards because they can't afford? What is labor like? And years ago, everyone had uniforms. Everyone dressed nice. Everyone was consistent. Now everyone has a different T-shirt, a different spandex on. They have earrings and tattoos showing all over the place. And that might be trending for the younger generation. But if you're feeding the older generation, that's where you're missing your mark,
Yeah.
because they don't want that. They miss the uniform. They miss the logo on the shirt. And, I think that the environment across the United States has completely changed. And in the old days, everyone had the nice McDonald's hat. The shirt was clean and tucked into your pants, and you had the pants. And now everyone, even though they work for McDonald's, they have different uniforms, and it's sloppy, it's wrinkled, it's dirty. So, where are we going as an industry? Because I don't feel safe when I'm out there eating, because I don't feel like anything's clean either. Again, I was at the hotel in North Conway that I worked at randomly, and I went in there, and the owner's son is basically touring everybody through the restaurant, and he shows them the walk-in. And I go in that walk-in, and they ice up the fish, but they're putting 5, 6 different flavors of fish in there in pans and by itself, wrapped up in plastic. But the ice melt, so that it's knocked over. So cross-contamination. Chicken's on the floor, meat is on the floor. It's not properly where the eggs are on the shelf properly, and the meat is, and it's all dripping. And I'm just like, the amount of money you're wasting throwing in the trash, and that you guys are proud of this, and no one does anything about it. And this is just behind the scenes.
Yeah.
This is just one location I went to, and I've seen many others just looking through the window how filthy they were. And the employees represent that. If they're out there, they don't care, and their uniform's dirty and their hair's not combed, that's a representation of the restaurant and how it is. And listen, I want the restaurants to succeed, don't get me wrong, but you don't deserve to succeed that way if you're manipulating people to thinking they're eating fresh food and it's sloppy and cross-contaminated. I was going into another breakfast restaurant, and I liked it because it was a good price, and all I ever wanted was a couple eggs and some hash browns every time, and a cup of coffee. I didn't order any meat. But every time I went there, I got food poisoning. I was sick to my stomach. And then I realized, I talked to somebody else. They go, yeah, the same thing happens to me. And I said, you know what? They're leaving the eggs out all day and night.
Yeah.
The eggs, because the hash browns aren't going to do it. And it was more than once. And I talked to other people, same thing. So I called the health inspector, and she made every excuse for them. And I go, are you kidding me? I go, I'm ServSafe certified, HACCP certified. I know what food poisoning is. I'm not playing games with you. I'm not trying to badmouth the restaurant, but somebody needs to make a change and identify what the problem is there before they really get somebody sick.
Yeah.
So influencers can also influence the wrong information about restaurants without knowing, because they're not educated. They're not from a culinary school. And forget about culinary schools, food chemist, or anybody that's studied any type of food.
Yeah. Trying to think how to introduce this part of it. I think part of that too is it feels like the standards initially got lower because the events in 2020, right? Like the pandemic hits. And I'm saying that because when you were explaining all that, I had a flashback to when I first realized that I saw the bar drop. You know what I mean? It was like that first time where I feel like we never really bounced back from. And I went to get an oyster po' boy because Pensacola, where I was living at the time, was well known for the Pensacola oysters, right? And at this restaurant, had those kind of po' boys. It might not have been the Pensacola oyster, but my point is that was the type of seafood that was really common there and that I like. And so I remember going there, and I remember seeing the picture on the wall, right? Like we're pulling up because you can't go inside. And so we order, and they come out, and they were short on ingredients. So instead of giving me or letting me know or anything like that, I got upcharged because we've talked about how it costs more money to do takeout. So I got upcharged, and then basically I got half of what I actually ordered. I don't mean there was less food. I mean I didn't get a po' boy bun. I got a broken up compromise of a bun. You know what I mean? The stuff just wasn't very good quality. And the reason why I say that is because even fast forwarding now, you talk about, like, we've talked about before, how like Starbucks is now basically a drive-through cafe, no different than Seven Brew or Dutch Bros, but they're still charging like they're a going and sit down cafe. And it just really feels like that bar, there was never really this bounce back to standards. And amongst that with restaurants, I think it made it easier for people with not great opinions, like not great opinions, but like influencers with no experience to be able to come in and leave those comments. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't just the standard for the restaurant drop, the standard for what we were expecting from influencers was dropping.
Correct. And that's what happened to me recently. It was about 2 weeks ago. One of the influencers influenced this great brunch location that was about 15 minutes away from me. So I said, I'm going to try it. I want to go try something different. So I get there, and I normally just don't order one entrees. I want to try the different things. I mean, it was Mexican influence, although it had pancakes and some mimosas and everything else. So they had they said they made their carnitas in-house fresh. So it was a carnita like fajita skillet.
Yeah.
Like an egg on top. And then I ordered their house chilaquiles.
Mm-hmm.
So she asked me, well, it comes with pancakes, toast, or muffin. And I said, okay. Instead of the pancakes, can I get tortillas with the carnitas? And she goes, yes. So, okay, fine. So I figured the chilaquiles also came with the side. So I ordered that. And I said, okay, I'll take the pancakes with that. She goes, okay. I get my bill. She charged me $1.99 for the tortillas and charged me $7.50 for the pancakes. So if you're going to charge me for the tortillas, you should have still given me the pancakes for free, even if they didn't come with the chilaquiles, which she didn't mention. And the chilaquiles weren't even made that well. I mean, they just sauce on top of the tortilla chips, so it felt like it was a bunch of nachos. So, but these are the things that the influencers don't understand. You know, the end pricing, what they're doing. You know, if the food isn't authentic Mexican and they're just putting certain ingredients together. And, you know, and the price when I walked out of there with the tip and everything else was $85 for the two things.
Yeah.
And I had a mimosa also with it. But, you know, it's just saying that, you know, when you go to, and I understand you're trying to showcase some really great food, and some of these places are really great, but when you're reviewing a restaurant, there's consequences. You have to stay by a standard and not be negative. I'm not saying like what I said was, you know, majority of it was negative, but I'm just pointing out what they're influencing on. You know, they got to influence the environment and the paycheck and what they're paying for. And it's not to drive people away. It's to let them know that, hey, if this is what you want to pay, you know, if this is what the experience you want, this is what they provide.
Well, I think that's also kind of shown the quality in the influencers, because there's a part two to this. So the part one is that, like, my buddy, for example, stopped telling people, or he tries to avoid people recognizing him, because he does want to do like an authentic review. And that has nothing to do with the restaurant, to be honest. Like he wants the restaurants to do well so he can keep eating at them, obviously. But he's like, you know, my audience wants my real opinion. And I say that because, like, when I've gone with him, it's funny because we have actually like he didn't tell. There's this one restaurant we went to. It was like it's in a place called Gulf Coast Town Center where I grew up near FGCU. And it's this Italian place that had just opened, and they didn't know he was an influencer. We're just sitting there like doing honestly what we would do whether or not he was an influencer. We're just ordering, same thing I would do with you, right? Let's order some different things. We just want to try stuff we've never been here before. The problem is the giveaway is him sitting there taking pictures and not letting me try anything. So I have to sit there and patiently wait for him to take all the, oh, are you an influencer? Like, so like I said, he tries to dodge it. But I think to that point is like having the authentic experience, like you said, like them actually going in and dining and like, hey, this is what it's really like to eat here. That's what the Turkish influencer, the taxi driver does. If you watch his reels, like he's even gone in with disguises, which doesn't really fool people that well. But the point is, they don't really realize till halfway through the meal who he even is. And hopefully that'll be a new way that influencers are approaching it, is rather than trying to brandish who they are in their brand, realizing there's more value for you and your audience doing it that way. Because the part two of this whole thing is, as a restaurant, you're fully within your right to respond. But the things I would love to start seeing restaurants stop doing is like, stop going on the video and commenting. Like, respond with your own, promote yourself. Like, you as a restaurant have just as much power as these influencers are, believe it or not. You have an easier time to build a following. You're selling a service with product. Like, you have all of the power and leverage. The only reason why these influencers are beating you out is because they're investing the time and energy into it, but they don't have to produce anything. So you can still respond. But I think that's just kind of another angle that we're going to see the way things are evolving. You know, if you're a restaurant that chooses not to market yourself and an influencer destroys your business, like, I feel bad for you, but like, that is a little bit on you. Every business needs to market itself, you know? So I know I'm coming a little bit too strong from the marketing side, but I just think, like, as a restaurant, if you are suffering from these things, respond, start building online presence, start being an influencer yourself. I mean, you would have more clout as a restaurant going around and jazzing up your friends. And I say that because I knew some restaurant owners and where I grew up, and like, that's what they did. They'd go to each other's restaurants to kind of like promote it a little bit, you know?
And I agree with you 100% on this, but I feel that the influencers actually get more business for those restaurants and chains. But Google is what hurts you. Google is the one where people do, you know, and I would say more mature people that are really interested in the restaurant versus seeing a video. They're looking at the reviews. And I will look at a Google review, and if it's consistent about the food and the service, I'm probably not going there. And that's what can hurt you. Now, I've seen some managers that basically won't respond. I've seen managers that respond with everything positive, say, hey, give me a phone call, and whether they follow up or not, and offer, you know, a discount, or say, hey, let me take care of you. In the old school, it's not trying to get something for free. It's like, I would handle the problem right there and then.
Yeah.
But they're handling the problem after the fact, which I think is wrong. That's not customer service. If the customer didn't say anything at the time and walked out, that's on him. But where I grew up in the industry, we handled it right there. If somebody didn't like it, say, okay, let me buy you a bottle of wine, desserts on us. Let me just comp your meal, and I'm sorry. And they'll come back. That's the way to handle it. Google, there's so many negative responses on there, and the manager's trying to be kind. But then there's managers that are actually being honest. Hey, wait a minute. You came in here. You were drunk. You didn't ask us for this. You know, you were harassing our waitress. Those are the responses, even though somebody went there and gave you a 1 star and gave you a really bad review. And that's the honesty that I want to read.
Yeah, I actually think, but that is really the actual solution. Like, people do care about that. I say that because I do read those when I see managers respond and stuff, like exactly like what you're saying. If someone says, I mean, don't crap all over the customer, right? Don't be like, oh, you're a terrible person. But if you go, you know, if you go, no, you exactly what you said. You came in, you were mistreating our staff. That's not acceptable. That's a totally great response. You know what I mean? And honestly, that 1 star review all of a sudden looks a lot different to me than a 1 star review. Right. You know what I mean? So like, it carries that much more weight. And I say that because I am going to pick on a specific restaurant, coming back to the Santa Fe one, because it really bothered me. So there's a seafood boil place that my girlfriend really liked. And it's also, you know, Santa Fe, you got to have those hot peppers in there. So they like had a little bit of an extra special sauce because of the local peppers, and it was in season. But what's really funny is with the seafood boil, because you're talking about seafood, right? And granted, it's bulk seafood, but I mean, it's still expensive food. So they go, oh, well, we're going to check the bag before you leave and make sure everything's okay. And we're like, that's great, right? That way we can see all the seafood, everything's good. We get home, she's not gonna eat crab legs that are like black and like distorted. Even if the meat is fine, that's how she is. So she tries to call the restaurant. No one picks up. Tries to call again, half an hour later, nobody picks up. I mean, we're not going to go drive back there. That just wasn't an option we were willing to entertain. So what she does, she leaves a review and just says, you know, I was pretty disappointed because we checked our food, and in the middle of the bag, because if you've ever had a seafood boil, it's a bag. And usually crab claws are tracked on top of each other, but they had positioned it perfectly where between the sauce and the other seafood, we didn't see it. And so she shared how she felt that went. The manager's response was something along the lines of, that's just what you get when you get seafood. That kind of stuff happens. We did check it beforehand. Basically, it's not our problem. That too bad, so sad. Well, we're definitely not going back there. And mind you, a seafood boil is something that still costs, like, it's not cheap. It's like $60. I mean, I'm kind of being really nice about it. It's probably even more than that, depending if you're getting crab in there. But like, that reaction was, what it did for us is we didn't actually check those 1 star reviews before, because we were just like, we're going to try it. It's the only place in town like this. But then we start looking at the other reviews and we see how the manager responded. And it was pretty similar to like, that's your problem. We don't really care. And it was legitimate issues. And like, that is the thing that really does sink or swim your business. I guess what I'm trying to say is people do read the reviews and they do care. So I wouldn't stress so much about, I think people for a long time have been very suspicious of restaurants that have all 5 stars. If you're doing that, you're probably manipulating the reviews. That's just the general consensus you're going to get.
Oh, I could ask 20 people to review it for me. Right,
Exactly.
give me good reviews. Yeah.
And only the good ones. But the way you handle negative press, especially as a restaurant, because the reality is you're serving so many people, you're going to have dissatisfied customers. No one's 100% happy. How you react to that negativity, and whether it's an influencer or a 1-star review, in my mind, can really define how people are going to treat your business going forward, because there is no objective best, right? It's just, but how people feel about you isn't going to be just your food. It's not just your ambiance. It's like you said, it's how the staff is treating you on, like, in person and online. So I do feel like that is the response. I feel like that is the right way to handle it. So any restaurant not doing that is making a big mistake. But the ones that are doing it right, I think they are rewarded for it, even when they don't have 5-star reviews. I mean, don't get me wrong, don't drop below 4 stars. You're probably going to get different feelings. But people that have 4 to 4.8, I feel like those are the restaurants that thrive, the ones that respond properly, that fix problems and address it. Like you said, if that's what Cheddar's did to us, they basically said on the first mess up where there was raw chicken or something like that, my girlfriend called and they said, come back in, we'll give you a gift card. The second time we came in, we just got bad service. It was just a bad luck of a combination of things that happened.
I think what happens too is that it comes down to manager training. So the manager is leading by example. So the rest of the employees are acting that way. I've never seen a good manager that does training and communicates have a bad restaurant. And, you know, there's a restaurant out here, an Italian locally here. And I found it by accident, and I like the food. And I sat at a table with some guests, but the next couple of times since I'm by myself, I just go to the bar, and bartender's rude. Then I ordered my entree, and this happened a couple of times, and I could hear one of the ladies, and she's usually the hostess. I could just hear her screaming, yelling, cussing, and just going off. And I'm just like, what is this? And I asked the bartender, what's wrong with that lady? Who is she? She's the hostess, right? She goes, no, she's the new owner. I go, wow. I go, that explains her attitude every time we walk in here. I go, and then I ordered the entree. So it's a lemon chicken francese they make it with fresh linguine. So it's fresh from scratch.
Yeah.
So first of all, I have to wait because they're dishing out a private party. So I have to wait extra long. Then they bring the entree out, and they gave it to some other lady that just barely showed up 15 minutes ago. Well, I've been waiting for over 45 minutes, and she didn't even order it. She started eating it, of course. And then they realized what they did wrong. So then they bring me my entree, and then they said, well, we had to use all the linguine for the party, so we ran out, so we gave you fettuccine instead. I go, number one, when I ate it, I didn't like the fettuccine. You know, it just didn't have the same texture for the entree. And I know people think pasta is pasta, but not for me. And, you know, and I'm like, not only I waited, have to hear the cussing, you gave my entree to somebody else, and they never apologized. They didn't even say, hey, let me buy you dessert, let me buy you a glass of wine. Nothing to rectify the problem. I would have been happy with just an apology. I'm not looking for free food because I'm full as it is. I would never eat a dessert. But these are examples of bad training and things that happen even in good restaurants with great food. And I go to a lot of great restaurants that have really, really good food, but the service is horrible. Absolutely. Again, I went to a restaurant the other day, and the bar seats were all the same except one. And so when I sat there, I didn't realize it. So the seat was lower. So I moved over. So the bartender comes up to me to bring me bread and placed it where I was sitting on purpose. And I'm just thinking, why couldn't he place it in front of me? So it's just bad training. And, you know, I would like for influencers, you know, to post on this stuff. So, you know, what would do? This would actually get the owners to smarten up and get better and do their jobs better. It's not going to hurt you and break you, but it's going to make you think something's wrong here. Because they're not going to ever identify these problems. Yeah.
I think the bigger thing you're hitting too, that the influencers aren't really hitting, that we want to see as customers who are not influencers or restaurants, is like, what is the actual whole experience? And I say that because when you're like, oh, all I'm asking for is an apology or just something to make it right. Like, that's not someone trying to get free food or whatever, which is general. I do think that's how restaurant owners that I've talked to have seen it. It's like, oh, this person's just trying to not like, you know, at the end of the day, like, if you make this person happy, they're going to keep coming back. And at the end of the day, isn't that a goal, to build a community around your business in a way? And what I'm trying to get at is, it's all about doing the little things right. People notice the little things in an experience driven business. And the reality is, a restaurant isn't just about the food. It's not just about the ambiance. It's not just about the service. It's the sum total of the experience. And that really comes from like the little nuance. I mean, that's why you like when you go to a fancy, really nice restaurant. It doesn't even have to be 5 stars. Like my favorite fancy restaurant where I spent way too much money was Trulux. And I love Trulux because at the end of the day, it was expensive, but everything was all inclusive in a lot of ways. And I just had a good experience. Every little thing was right from the second I got out of the car, which by the way, was not driving a nice car at the time that I went there. But they were just people were friendly. People were nice. They were super helpful. They helped. Like, I felt like everything was smooth and it was focused on me even when I wasn't, and I think that comes from the little things. I mean, even when we were trying little things on the plate, it's just like, oh, there's so much thought put into this. And I'm not saying you have to be as nice as a Trulux and spend like, $300 on 2 people, but like, even when you go to like a regular diner, right? Like I said, I like diners. Having the little things right is all I really care about, because like, I don't want to sit there and be annoyed by a sticky table, like you said, when it comes to cleanliness. So I think that's part of kind of what you're getting at. Like something as simple as putting your bread and your drink where you move to and not making it a hassle if you move, even when you move tables. Like I'm sure everyone's been through that before. I know it's really frustrating if you work at a restaurant and there's certain zones and stuff like that. But the reality is like they're paying the same money either way. Why not just make sure they have a good experience so they keep coming back? Because it only takes really one bad experience to prevent them from coming back again. But if you get them in 3 times, they'll keep coming back to you forever.
True. And this is how I rate them. Yeah. Okay, you did that. Could have been a mistake. Minus 2%.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, another 2%. The 4th or 5th time, no refill. Don't care. Don't offer dessert. Another 2% or 5%. And the funny thing is, everyone, it was a hit or miss, but they have specials.
Yeah.
So she would hand one person a specialist. Never offered me a specialist. So I'm just thinking, you know what? Be consistent. And, they don't understand. They're working for a bigger dollar, more gratuity. You got to go from 15% to 25%. Now, there's some customers out there that believe that they should always tip 25%. I don't. Gratuity is based off service. It's a luxury for you to get addition. And people are like, well, that's their living. Well, if that's my living, I'm going to work hard. That's like when I go to a job, I'm not just going to sit there and sleep on the job because I want to keep my job. So I'm going to work hard to prove to the manager that I deserve a promotion, I deserve a raise.
Yeah.
That's their gratuity, even though they're not servers. The other piece in all this is that, they work in the food industry, which is customer service based. Yeah. I understand sometimes you have to fire some of your customers because it's not like the old days. But if you make a mistake and the manager does come up to you and you complain to the manager or even to the employee, sometimes the customer, when you take care of them, say, don't worry, I'll take care of this. It's not going to happen again. He goes, yeah, listen, we all have bad days. The customer then understands and he'll side with you. He's not going to blame you. He's not going to blame the restaurant if you do the right thing. But there's such a lack of that. There's such a lack of management presence nowadays in the restaurant.
Yeah, I think we talked about that, where I feel like every big expensive restaurant I've been to in the last 3 or 4 years, like I see a manager. So I even when I don't want them to talk to me because my mouth is full, like at least someone's checking on me. Where in the smaller places, you don't feel that as much. Because I mean, even with the tipping part, that you just had me reminding me, like I was that person for a long time, or no matter what, I tip 20%, not 25. Probably 25 is for really stellar, exceptional service. And then I started going back to the fact that like I tip 15 because I'm the kind of person where if I have a bad experience and I tip you 20%, it's because you're never going to see me again. Like, yeah, it's because I feel a little guilty not to, or whatever it is. But like, I'm definitely the quiet kind of person. Like I don't like being asked a lot of questions. I just want my food delivered to me and I just want to eat it and like whatever. But my whole point being is like, I'm not going to complain to you. And I know that sounds terrible, but it's just because to me, like there's other restaurants I can go to. So if I'm having a bad experience, I'll just go spend my money someplace else. And I think from the side of the customer and the restaurant, people need to stop thinking that they're entitled to money. Like at the end of the day, like like you said, you got to earn that money. And so that's why, like, if I tip you 15%, it's actually not a terrible sign because I'll probably come back at least one more time because at least the food was good. But if I tip you 20% and it looks like I had a bad experience, if anyone ever sees me, just know I'm tipping you 20% because you're never going to see me. That's the most money you're ever going to get out of me,
Correct.
So,
and nowadays the tips are manipulated because they're asking for a credit card fee, a service charge, cost of living charge.
Service fee in Chicago blew my mind.
Yeah. So if you're going to pay 40% on top of the food you just ate, guess what? I can't tip you 25%.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we're going to your restaurant and supporting it to keep you guys open. Now, I understand you have to make a fair wage living. So if you're making minimum wage, you're still doing it. But, the owner has to figure out, the balance of all this, because all
Yeah.
these fees are keep including, guess what? It's hurting my bottom line to keep going out and dining. It's like a corporation. You get a quarterly budget. Okay. If you don't spend it, you lose it. So at the end, you got to spend your money. So basically, if I was tight with my money at the end of the quarter, I had some extra money. So I'm going to go back and celebrate and treat myself. And that's
Yeah.
what I look at. Okay, here's my budget every month of what I'm going to spend to go out and eat. This is what I can afford. And if I saved a little bit more money and I didn't have to spend all that money on alcohol and gratuity and everything else, I'm going to go back to that restaurant and spend, another dining experience or two there before the
I
end of
didn't even think about that. I've been seeing that a lot lately in articles that do explain like the economy, things are tough right now. Like, doesn't matter how well everyone says the economy is doing, when it comes to the individuals right now, people are hurting. And so kind of to your point, like every customer matters now, because it really just, they're not going out to eat as much, which means that like if you want to be their number one option, you got to show up every time. And if you make a mistake, like you said, you got to fess up to it. That's what's going to keep bringing people back. Like, it is harder now, and everyone's aware. I mean, the sad part about the restaurants, and this is me throwing my opinions out there, is like, I don't like the minimum wage thing they have set up, where it's not real minimum wage, it's like a fraction of that. So it's like, wait, so I'm subsidizing the restaurant already that has bare minimum? It just doesn't seem like, compared to other businesses, that it's fair. Why do I have to subsidize them with tips? What, like, why can't I? And then this is obviously because I've been to Europe, where it's like, no, you don't have to think about any of that stuff. So it's just, that's already one of the harsh realities of the businesses here in the US, is with the tipping culture and stuff. So that's why I really feel like it really comes down to the little things of why it's so much more important. And, because I don't actually feel like influencers, they really have nearly as much power as people think. It's like, yeah, I'm going to check out to see what you say, but it's people's individual experiences that keep them coming back and keep them coming. So like, I just don't think it's worth obsessing over influencers if I'm in that business.
You're 100% right, because influencers do not make or break these restaurants. It's management and ownership. And again, at the hotel that I was working at in North Conway, they didn't understand that they were the ones that were losing the money, because they weren't managing. They weren't checking their linen. They had employees on there from 2 years ago that were no longer working there. Their linen bill was $4,000 to $5,000 a month or a week. I can remember what the cycle was. And when we finished and I got them to change the inventory, it became $1,500.
Wow.
When they don't want to change serving 2 or 3 different types of butter for breakfast, with half the people or 80% of the people actually throw it away, they would get real maple syrup, and then people didn't have maple syrup, but just threw it away. They would get real jars of preserves, and then so people just take it home because they wouldn't use it, or it was contaminated because people touched it, so they throw it away. It's like, wait a minute. You're the one losing the money, but then you say you can't give your employees an increase, and you can't help the restaurant succeed because you can't make proper choices to rectify your problems, so it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. 'Cause it's weird when a restaurant's like, oh, we need to have everything on the table just available right now. When you're talking about like how much waste that you're talking about, if we're truly feeding in that much, like, it is kind of mind blowing. That's like, and I say that because like my only experience in the food industry is I worked at an Ambiance for a couple of months, and man, we were rated on our waste because it was about the smell. That I did understand, right? Like, it's dumb that we're making food and throwing it away, but it's because the smell is what brought people in. It was a profitable enough product that it didn't matter. But I guess it is kind of mind blowing to hear that it's like exactly what you said. It's like, oh, well, we can't really treat our employees better, but we can afford like all this crazy butter that we're constantly throwing away. Like, I just feel like as a customer, like, I am going to ask for stuff I want, or you can offer it when you're asking me. I mean, that's why I just really think Texas Roadhouse kills it on their upcharges, right? Like, I love mushrooms on my steak and my potatoes. So like, every time we go to Texas Roadhouse, I make sure that I know it's an upcharge and I want those mushrooms, I just feel like they got it figured out,
You had the choice to make that choice. But the one restaurant that's a chain that was very popular was what is it called? With the Chinese bistro. What was it called?
PF Chang's.
PF Chang's, yes.
Yeah. They're still around.
Yeah, but guess what change they made to save money? They basically, whenever you went in and the minute you sat there, They brought the vinegars, the chili oil, the soy sauce, and the dishes, and then they would show you how to mix the different flavors together. And every table had it.
Yeah.
After a few years of them being open, they took all that away.
Oh yeah, I guess I do remember
Now
that
you
now.
have to request that, or you have to request chili garlic paste. You don't get that anymore, because
Yeah.
how much money were they losing by serving that to people that didn't even use it, versus giving them a little dish of a half ounce, versus everyone taking it and wasting it and then dumping it every day. So you probably save hundreds of thousands, even millions across the nation by pulling it.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's a
just
smart
funny.
move.
Yeah. It's just funny because you reminded me like I'm thinking of like small pho restaurants, so obviously just individually owned small places. And even with them, like, yeah, they have a lot of stuff on the table and things that last a long time. But like now that I think about it, I'm guessing chili oil is expensive because that's the thing that we usually have to ask for. Like there's always hoisin, there's always a lot of other stuff that we need just there, right there, ready for us to use, which by the way, still kind of easier if you just give it to us rather than leaving everything on the table. But it is kind of funny as you start to notice that with products where it's like, oh, that is actually a smart move that they're not just like leaving it out there to either just go to waste or for someone to just take it home.
Correct. So I think we covered enough on this, but what's
Yeah.
your takeaway? Where do you think the influencers are going in the next few years? Do you think this is just a trend and it's slowly going to die out because nobody's going to pay attention to these food critics anymore, and all the restaurants are going to be basically, you know, influenced out? Because how many times can you rate all cheval and a hot dog stand over and over again and have 20 or 50 or 100 influencers rate the same place? So is that going to stop? What do you feel?
I feel like it's more that their clout is gonna fall. You know, like being an influencer from the few friends I have that do it, like it's hard, you know, and the reason why is they're fighting a secret battle that restaurants don't even realize is helping them out, which is that Instagram loves changing that algorithm. It's a lot of it doesn't make sense. It's a meta product, so the way meta does it's what we call push and pray, where they'll go ahead and just push updates, not really knowing if it's going to work and it's going to break everything. And so influencers are already actually pretty stressed out too, in a lot of the similar ways that restaurants are, I think. And because of that, I do think that their value does fall. The only value they really have is their audience, sure, and I'm not saying you can't make money on it, but I do think that it's kind of like video game streamers. It's a very, very small amount that in very specific niche areas. Because you're not even, remember too, there's a difference between an influencer and a micro influencer. So what I think is going to happen is they are going to have a lot less clout. And I think what really helps is like when restaurants really step up. And I say that because I follow restaurants that I'm never going to be in Toronto, Canada. I don't know, maybe I'll visit one day. But I follow like this halal guys who do skits and stuff like that. Like as a restaurant, like you can really leverage your team in a lot of different ways to promote yourself and really put yourself out there if you're having a problem with influencers. But influencers themselves, I mean, it's very much a rotating door, just like restaurants, and it's very much an up and down type thing. And so the only real trend that I personally see that I think is really going to have a bigger impact is outside of kids doing skits as part of their food reviews. Because I've seen a few of those, but like I think a lot of the foodie guys that do it for fun and have the most impact are the ones that go in there and they're secretive about it. Like treat every customer like a secret shopper and you'll be successful. So to summarize that, I think their influence is going to go down. If you treat everyone like a secret shopper, your clout is going to go up with those guys. And if you start doing some of your own internal marketing, it's free. It really only takes a couple hours a week. You can be successful at it too. That's the kind of direction I think a lot of this is going to go, because social media is becoming pay to play. So it's not, yes, anyone could just pick up a phone and record, but you can't stay on top forever. So just keep that in mind.
The good thing with social media and Instagram, you can pay $10 or $20 a day to, get your posts across, versus, and $5,000 a month from a marketing company is nothing. $10,000 or $20,000 is what they normally want, and they want you to sign a 1-year contract. So restaurants cannot afford that. So you're right when it comes down to the bottom line of this.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, just remember those influencers are micro influencers, and restaurants themselves as businesses have bigger engines and more power than they ever could. So if you feel like you're being really pummeled by influencers, maybe you should start influencing people yourself.
I like your take on that.